Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing you to the news on church stories. I am Oyi Okbala. Let's go. A recent 27-minute BBC report has sparked outrage amongst observers and victims of the ongoing Ambazonian war in the Cameroons, particularly those in the area of Ambazonia. Critics have accused the report, anchored by journalist Blaze, of presenting a biased and incomplete narrative that glosses over key atrocities allegedly committed by Cameroon's military forces. While the piece attempts to summarize the conflicts that began in 2016 with a peaceful protest by lawyers and teachers, it omits critical details, including reports of school closure due to military attacks and widespread accounts of rape, brutality, and civilian casualties at the hands of La République du Cameroun army. Many argue that a BBC portrayal shifts blame towards Ambazonian fighters without acknowledging the deeper root of victimization and systemic oppression. With the war under the scrutiny of the International Criminal Court, the ICC, questions now arise. What is the legality of such a media report amid an ongoing international case? And should narratives that potentially prejudice justice be allowed to circulate unchecked? Well, all the we will dwell on tonight on Undaunted, but first, let's get the prime headlines. Here are the prime headlines for tonight. We'll start with a brutal attack that has left farmers hospitalized after being found along the Santa road. Also tonight, the Bomaka residents take to streets over faulty transformer. Controversy surrounding the BBC report on Southern Cameroon's conflict and also the ex-president of South Africa pouring his heart is on tonight's report. On the African scene, Uganda suspends military ties with Germany over alleged subversive activities, while on the global scene, controversial portrait to King Charles' historic parliamentary speech becomes the order of the day. Now let's get the news in full briefings. A local farmer in Santa is in critical condition after being discovered severely. The victim, a father of four, believed to be in his early 40s, was last seen leaving for a local event in the area after having returned from his farm. This report goes on to say in detail that a man in his early 40s fighting for his life at Mbingo Annex Hospital after being found badly beaten near the Colonial Public Security Post in Santa on the 21st of May 2025. The victim, who is a father of four and a farmer, was last seen leaving for a local event after returning from his farm. Well, according to sources, the man had spent May 20th working on his farm and returned home around 4 p.m. Later that evening, He went to the local ceremonial grounds known as the square. Sadly, he was discovered the following morning with visible injuries to his feet and on his head. One witness described the scene saying it looked like he had been beaten pretty badly. As of now, there are no updates about who attacked him, and no group has claimed responsibility yet. The population is waiting for the victim to recover, hoping he can provide vital information about what happened. So far, local authorities haven't issued any official statements about the attack. Medical staff at Mbingo Annex Hospital have also not provided updates on the man's condition as of the time of filing in this report. Before we get to our in-house analysis, let's also look at a event that is happening in Bomaka. Now, as of this time of filing this report earlier this morning, residents of Chief Street and Miss Bright Street in Bomaka Boyer took to the street to protest the ongoing power outages that have left them without electricity for close to 5 months. The power outage is caused by a faulty transformer. The situation persists despite the community's efforts to raise funds for a new one. The outage has also made water shortages worse as many families rely on electric boreholes for their supply. Today, May 26, frustrated residents from different neighborhoods took to the streets to express their anger over electricity shortages that have plagued their community in Bomaka Boya. The protesters reported to have contributed money to their quarter heads multiple times, yet they see no progress. La Republic de Cameroon's failure to provide reliable electricity has severely impacted daily on these persons, especially for families relying on electric boreholes for water and for their businesses, which they barely have access to under the colonial government. The people are now forced to deal with the consequences of neighboring La Republic de Cameroon's neglect. Today's protest is not the first of its kind, as this has become a common phenomenon across Ambazonia, where citizens have no option but to go out and protest for their basic human rights and basic human needs. Lack of electricity, water, food, healthcare, and education, amongst others, are part of the numerous challenges Amazonians have been facing since La Republic de Cameroon waged a war against her over 8 years ago. The community is calling for immediate action and are demanding that the colonial prioritizes their needs and take responsibility for the poor services they provide. All right, Barrister Mbeseha, thank you so much for joining tonight on Undaunted.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Right, you're welcome. So we have two reports here. One on someone, a man who sustained injuries all over his body, a man of about 40 years sustaining injuries all over his body. And we have another one, the people from Bomaka who are at this moment stranded, no light, no electricity, of course, that's power in general. And it has made businesses slow down even to get water because they use electricity boreholes. Of course, I am well informed that for some of them, they will have to use water lines to pump to get water, not because, they're not supplying water from La Republic of Cameroon in any way. So this has been going on for about a week, I got informed, and the people are trying to stage a protest. Do you think that a protest would yield any useful results, especially with the fake elections that are coming? Do you think that when the people protest, probably the La Republic de Cameroon colonial authorities would listen?
I think the two reports deal with two different things entirely. The report of the person dead or found dead in Santa tells a different story, and the protest in Bomaka over the lack of electricity tell a different story. But I will analyze each of them differently. We start with the one of Santa, where that guy is found dead in the street, a family man. Is that news to us? No. Many other people have been found dead in Santa, in Bamenda, in the northwest, in the southwest, we call it, in many other places in Ambazonia. without any explanation. The common causes to be raw, to be down to earth. There is a crisis of insecurity on the ground. A lot, a lot is undone. A lot is undone. A lot has to be done. And so, with the case of the guy who is dead in Santa, it reminds us that there's trouble. It reminds the world that there's no government. Because you're not going to find any government to get the cause of that man's death. You're not going to find anybody being prosecuted for his death. Therefore, in Ambazonia, in Santa in particular, in special, and in Ambazonia in general, there's absolute lack of government. There's lack of accountability for anything like this. Why? Because there's an ongoing war. How do you end such things, such unacceptable actions? You must bring peace in place. And peace can only come when we go to the table to address the root causes of the problem. That's what Santa reflects. And that's what it is. You can do it, you can keep quiet as they have kept quiet. The international community can pretend not to see. But all these bases in Rwanda are aware of what is going on. These stories are put in the newspapers. And so, since 2016, we have seen these things repeated everywhere. In Santa, in Momo, in Biya, everywhere in Amazon. And so they underlie a big problem, which problem of the unrest. And that is what Santa has come to. Because again, government is not taking action. Those who claim the government security are unable to bring security to this. What is the sense of a government? The government cannot guarantee your own security. What is the sense of a government? If the government cannot hold criminals accountable, there's no government, there's no governance there. Then we can take the next issue, which is the protests in Bomaka. The people are protesting again for lack of lights. Lack of lights. They are protesting against food. And if I got the report correct, you reported that the people have contributed some money to go buy a transformer. Buy a transformer for who? Who are the people who supply lights in that place? Is it a private generator? Is it a private company? Is it their own thing? Is it a community project? No. The company that supplies lights in Ambazonia in general and in Bomaka in particular is a public utility company. If the lights do come, even they are not come, they are paying the bills for it. They pay as it is. Why is this company punishing them? Are they doing this? Is it possible that they are just punishing them? Or is it possible that they're just inefficient? If they are unable to sell their own products, to which products they sell and make profit out of it, are they worth trouble? And so when these people contribute their money out of pocket to go and buy transformers, who pays it back? Since it is a government department, call it a private company, Sonnet, whatever name you give it. It is run by the government. The government appoints the administrators, the managers of that thing. They are run under the oversight of the Ministry of Mines and Energy. And so it reflects on the government. Would the government listen to it? Maybe. Because everything is possible in Cameroon, especially during during the election. Have you not seen what is going on right now? You find people in Banga, in some remote villages, dancing to the street because a caterpillar, a bulldozer has been brought and kept there to pretend to dig a road that has never been done for the past 70 years. And people are crying. Why? Because it is electionary. This is election year, in the next 5 months. Actually. And so they will do everything to pretend to be saving you. They will do anything and everything to gain to get their vote. Yes. So why do we have to go through this to get what we are entitled to? Every community is entitled to lights. Even if it is natural light coming down. Every community is entitled to drinking water. Even if it comes from the stream. And so if they don't provide this to you as a government, if they don't provide this to you as a state, what is the reason there to belong to that state? What is the reason there to for which you pay taxes? And so it might be elections are being done to manipulate the electorate. That's possible. Everything is possible in Cameroon. It might be They are just done because the company is so inefficient, which is a reflective of the government in our which are happens. But above all, people ought to know that they have a right to something. They have a right to water, they have a right to electricity. It's a right which you cannot pay. They have a right to security, which is what has happened to this
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
Yes,
Hello, Barista Mbeseha. Can you hear me? Can you
I
hear
get
me?
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
we can. We're having issues with your sound. Maybe it's the earpiece you're using, or your environmental sound is really disturbing and affecting the production so badly. The conversation this evening is
Okay,
very
let me
important. That to fix
okay,
it.
let me just Derek, you push just already. Okay, are you getting me now?
I think it's much better now.
Okay, let me just use my ordinary ears. I was
Perfect.
saying,
Hello, viewers. Please,
I
we
was
apologize for the
saying,
interruption. Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying that what happened, Santa happened in Bomaka, have two different analyses. There are things that are happening to us, but they reflect on us differently. I took the issue of Santa and said that security wise, and what has happened to that is not new. It has happened to many other people in Bamboo, in Batibo, in Kumba, in Donga Mountain, everywhere in Ambazonia. People have just like that. And what does it reflect? It reflects insecurity. Why the insecurity? Because the insecurity, absence of governance, which is why you're not going to find any investigation to punish the criminals. You're not going to find any investigation to identify whoever has done it because there's no governance. What governance? God is law. That insecurity will only end throughout Ambazonia when we can go to the root causes of the problem. Come to the conference table, address the root causes of the problem. Ambazonia will get what it deserves, will provide our own security. That is what the Santa issue is about. And then I was trying to analyze what happened in Bomaka. Bomaka's protest is purely because people don't have lights, if I got the story true. Why do you not have lights? The company supplying lights is not doing it gratis, it's not doing it for nothing. It is people have to go out and contribute money out of pocket to go and buy a transformer. Whose transformer are they buying? Are they buying their own personal transformers or the transformers for the company? The company is government because it's affiliated to the government. Call it Sonny, I don't know what name they call it now. It's attributed to the government, attached to the Ministry of Foreign Mines and Energy. It's government. Are they doing this deliberately? It's possible because this is election year. They will use any ploy, they will use anything to gain the vote, to pretend to be saving you. And I was given the example of what I've just seen a few minutes or hours ago. Happening in Bangan, you see caterpillars. It's not just in Bangan. Caterpillars, bulldozers standing on road that have not been done for the past 60 years. They bring those things, they bring those things and put them there now to pretend to dig a road, to pretend to do something for you, just to gain the vote. Shall we be deceived any more than that? No. Ambazonians have a right to water to drink. They have a right to light, even if it is only sunlight. We do not need to go through all this. And so that is not the thing that we should be begging people to supply to us. It's a thing that we deserve as a community, we deserve as a people. The lights we consume, the water we drink, we pay for it. It's not a gift. But it is the responsibility of that government to provide those things and you pay a reasonable price for the consumption. But they are not providing anything at all. And yet, if you go to the homes, you find meters. You have electric meters hanging on your walls. There's no electricity, but they pay electricity at the end of the month. Is it not extortion? It's another form of extortion. And so that is the reason for which we fight. We fight to restore our institutions. But institutions are there to save you. We reinstate our Ministry of, call it energy. Which Ministry of Energy will be in charge of water? We'll restore our security forces. Whose security will take care of those crimes that have been committed in Santa and beyond. And so that's what it is. That's what I can say about that. And so that's my take on what has happened in Santa and what has happened in Bomaka. Over to you.
Barrister. Moving into one of the most important or very important report that we have tonight, about a recent BBC report. Well, that report is approximately 27 minutes in length, and it has drawn criticisms from observers, activists, and pressmen across the globe because they presented misleading and unbalanced information about the ongoing conflict in southern Cameroons, also known as Ambazonians, who are presently fighting for their independence and for them to be recognized and for statehood to be restored. But critics argue that the report fails to accurately reflect the complexities of their conflict, particularly the events that led to its escalation. The crisis began in 2016 with, in quote, Anglophone lawyers and teachers organizing peaceful protests against marginalization and the imposition of French legal and educational systems. These demonstrations were met with force by La République, the Cameroon security forces, which many say sparked a wider resistance movement and led to the current armed war conflict. Now, despite this background, the BBC report places undue blame on Ambazonians and probably her fighters without acknowledging and ignoring the broader context or the role of La République du Cameroon military in escalating this violence. We would pause here and ask a question. Where in the world do people protest and are killed in return? Nowhere. Are they supposed to keep quiet when they are being killed for protesting against injustice? Oh well. Notably, the account of state-sanctioned abuses, including alleged terrorization of schools, the closure of educational institutions due to military presence, and widespread reports of sexual violence against women and girls by La République du Cameroon soldiers were not mentioned. That can be found in Ambazonian Genocide Library, some of whom reportedly even became pregnant as a result of all of these abusive issues. These omissions and even more are not just journalistic oversight. One activist said that they serve to distort the narrative and shift the blame onto the very communities that have suffered most. Of course, you know, Ambazonian on the side have suffered most. And so the report is also criticized for lacking verified casualty figures. Why talk about 5,000 when death rate is over 40,000? And for failing to highlight that many victims of the violence are civilians crossfires as well. Some are refugees in neighboring countries. Skeptics question whether Ambazonian fighters would target their own communities, especially in light of the heavy military presence in Ambazonia. Would the people kill their very own? Well, with the conflict currently under preliminary examination by the International Criminal Court, questions have arisen about the legality and timing of media narratives that could influence public opinion or judicial proceedings. This is not just about media ethics, it's about justice and truth. While freedom of the press is essential, reports on ongoing legal cases, particularly those involving war crimes, must be handled with utmost care and responsibility. And so as investigations continue and the ICC considers evidences, Ambazonians are calling balanced reporting that centers the voice of victims, the voice that has killed Ambazonian sons and daughters and babies that have been fried in this senseless war. They all should be acknowledged, and the full scope of the conflict in southern Cameroons be examined as well. Well, we have clips of this particular BBC report that we will be playing in the course of this conversation. And so joining us also in this conversation is the news director of ABC Amber TV, Mr. Tarh Paddy King, who will be airing his thoughts, as well as Barrister Mbeseha. And while we are having this conversation, we will be presenting some of the clips and some of the videos that we were able to extract from the BBC reports. But first of all, I just want to ask Barrister Mbeseha, have you seen the video, the BBC reports?
Well, I haven't read that report. I haven't read that report honestly. But if you allow me, I would say something. Are you getting me?
Yes, I would definitely come back to you. Probably by the time I would have come back to you, would play some of the excerpts from that video so that you'll be well abreast with some of with the area and the line we're trying to tow tonight. Mr. Tarh, I'm sure you've seen the video, and I'm also sure that you have your own thought line about the video. You can agree with me that some of the reports are imbalanced. The triggers or what necessitated Ambazonians to begin to fight for their rights and their freedoms truly left on the low. Let's hear your thoughts on what you actually think. I know your feelings may be high, but I would like us to, toe the line of calm a bit so that people can understand where this is coming from. Let's get your thoughts, please.
Yeah, good evening, Barrister Mbeseha. Onye, thank you for a good coverage there and for having me this evening. There's so much for me to say about the 27 minutes documentary by BBC. I took out time yesterday and I've watched it at least 3 times. And every time I watch, there's something new that I would see with the manipulation. The BBC cannot claim to be ignorant of the humanitarian collateral damage or damages that's happening on the ground, and they cannot choose when to generalize or specify. When you're talking about a human rights lawyer like Agbabala, he knows the distinction of those who are causing the crime. And the journalist, the BBC journalist, is someone I know. I know him very personally. I consider his reporting as an outright fraud. And I will explain. First of all, you have a Cameroonian journalist. I like the overlay images that were there, and I would like the technicians to bring those images on the screen as we are doing this analysis. First of all, you would have a Cameroon, La République du Cameroon journalist. That's Michel Bientong a few minutes ago. Tomorrow we'll bring what he was discussing about. Having an accurate analysis of what they would like to call Anglophone crisis in a 50 minutes expose. And then an Ambazonian born pretentiously claims that he doesn't know the truth about the historical representation of the fight. Now, BBC editorial is not ignorant of what. So I think the BBC documentary, though the captions seem a little bit good, I think it's a Cameroon military or Cameroon media stunt. We know how Cameroon government plays their card because the report was not fair, the analysis was not fair. They started by claiming that there's been casualties on civilian population from both sides, and I even like the image you're showing now on the screen. But when you look at the analysis of it, 80% was leaning against the Ambazonian armed struggle. So you realize that the editor-in-chief of that documentary strategically wanted to paint an image about how the people of the Southern Cameroons are prosecuting their war of independence. Another person whose analysis is shocking to me is Agbabala. He's a legal mind. He's a lawyer. He knows in international law and international relations the value of words. I'm talking about his constant use. I don't know when Agbabala started using the word Anglophone, because when he was the leader of the consortium, this man would go on TV and we use the word Southern Cameroons. But Southern Cameroon is a legal term that neutralizes Cameroon's argument in the international community. They want to, I work with you people in the newsroom, so I investigated this report. They want the world to think that the people of Southern Cameroons are fighting a linguistic war. which is far from the truth. If you go on the comment section on the BBC website, the YouTube link, and Facebook, you have other Africans, after watching the 27 minutes documentary, actually saying that we are fighting because of a language. You and I, Onye, you have been reporting this for close to 4 years. You know that this war is far from being a war. Ambazonians do not have grievances because they are speaking English or because somebody is speaking French. This is a war that is being fought because for far too long, the national territory of the Southern Cameroons was illegally invaded. The people were constantly, intentionally being assimilated, and Cameroon had embarked on a mission to annihilate a people because of their natural resources. Shocking to me, the two sons of Bayangi, the journalist Eyong and Agbo Nkongo, these are the two that I would think that the Cameroonian government has used and instrumentalized with a lot of money. They have the monies we don't even have to sponsor this media stunt. It's a disgrace. And that's why Donald Trump calls them fake news. It's a disgrace that a reputable media house like BBC will come out to make an analysis of a war that has existed for close to 8 years and will present facts that are not accurate. When you look at reports coming in from the refugee, Norwegian refugee center, these are statistics that the BBC can rely on. Why do they choose to ignore statistics from reputable organizations like that and then take statistics that are coming in from Yaoundé? So there's a pure bias in this documentary. It is very unfair. It is imbalanced as an overlay. I'm going to talk on some specific issues, but I think at this point, you may want to come up with some of the excerpts you have so that Barrister Mbeseha and myself will react to it.
Thank you so much. Let's take the one on education. While this, I think this is very important, the excerpt on education is because we are well aware of some of the dangers that Ambazonian children faced while going to school, while in school. Severe reports of the dangers and the attacks while even in school. So there are not enough securities for them in school. And Ambazonians and the Ambazonian leaders felt that this could be a way of protecting them and asked that they sit at home. But right about now, it's used against Ambazonians. Let's get that video.
For years now, the separatists have tried to enforce a ban on education, which is viewed by them as a mouthpiece for government propaganda.
No school open.
This video was filmed in October 2023 in a town called Guzan. While
Okay.
Yeah. Go right ahead, Onye, I can hear you.
All right, Barrister Mbeseha, I'm sure by now you would understand what this video is all about. I'm so sorry that you didn't get a chance to see the video before the report this night, but with all of the information and the report I've given and the foundation that Mr. Tarh has laid for us here and put them on the front burner, I'm sure that you would be able to join this conversation at this point. You can remember the time when the Ambazonian government declared that there wasn't going to be any schools. I then aids that children could actually learn at home. But right here, we have the BBC indicated that it was the Ambazonian fighters or the ASA or the Ambazonian fighters in general that made sure that students didn't go to school, which made education an impossible task in the Ambazonian area.
Can I address the issue now?
Yeah, go right ahead, please.
I've seen the report, I've heard Paddy's take, but this is what I think is important. You see, that we have complained, and many other people have complained, that the conflict in Ambazonia, according to us, and the conflict in Cameroon, according to other people, has been underreported or gone unreported for so long. This is a general complaint. It's either underreported or it's not reported at all. And so when we take it from that angle, what do you expect the reporting of a conflict to be? A reporter will report the conflict or the story based on his or her own leaning point, his interests. Taking it locally, the way CRTV reports this thing is very different from the way, for example, Equinox. It is very different from the way the Post would report the story. But at the end of it, what is the underlying factor of the report? What underlies all those reports is that there is some big problem underneath that requires a solution. The solution is not necessarily what Yaoundé says. According to Yaoundé, from their own reporting, because they say separatists are trying to break down our country, criminals. That's the report. Some people in Equinox will say, no, these people are fighting for something genuine. And so, based on that reporting, if it is widely reported, you expect the world to take note. If it is reported in any form or shape, in the British press, in the French newspapers, in the American newspapers, you expect the politicians there, because it's a political issue, to take note of what is going on and come to it. The justice that we want is not going to come from what Agwambala says in his report. It's not going to come from what CRTV says on their report. No, it's going to come because people who have been aware there's a big conflict going on there. People would have, those who matter, would have been able to pressurize Yaoundé and us to come to the conference table and address the root causes. The facts will fall where they belong. The ICC you mentioned, it's not just to come, it will not come to the ground just and write what Agwamala said. That's why they come on the ground to check the facts for themselves. Let's take, for example, again, as an illustration, we all know Ngarbu. We all know Ngarbu very, very well. We know that Ngarbu, by our own reporting, was pure murder. They recruited the Fulanese and gave them arms to come and kill our people. They account to them, by their own reporting, we're going to have people to keep peace. But ICC comes there to say these children and pregnant women who were killed in this thing are wrong. Whether they were killed by Ambazonian fighters or by the restoration force or by the army, these people who brought the book. They come to the ground and go to Ngarbu and say, what happened? He said, this guy who cooperated, this is the commander who was commanding here. They booked them down. And they are to be sanctioned in that light. So we expect these reports to be fair. But fairness depends upon who is reporting. Because every reporter, call it even a newspaper, if it's a newspaper reporting, they report what they will say. Their goal is not just to sell your case, it's to sell their products. And depending upon their community. But again, the bottom line is that they are reporting a problem. There's a problem. Just before we came to this social media, I've seen this thing from former South African President Thabo Mbeki.
Yeah, but Mbeseha, a moment, please.
Yes.
We have a chronology this evening. We're going to come to the Thabo Mbeki stuff. Permit me.
I was just trying to illustrate.
Permit me.
I was trying to use that one to illustrate this fact. That
I just don't want us to. Mix something. Just a moment. Onye, permit me to come in, please. I just don't want us to mix some things because I want us to go in a chronology. There's so much for us to say about it, and unfortunately, we're starting a very late. Just to intervene what you said there. First of all, it is not our responsibility to revise editorial policy of any media platform, but it is our duty as the main voice of the nation of Ambazonia to debunk, to vehemently criticize what we feel that was not accurate. And I think I would insist on this, that I feel it is shameful that BBC would claim to present a documentary that is so unfair when it comes to the actual fact or the actual collateral damage that's happening on the ground. If you look at the image Onyejo showed to us, they would choose what the international community can easily buy to call us terrorists about schools. The government, has specifically and outrightly sent out press statements. Dr. Munga has sent them over years, for about 3 years now, stating the position of the Ambazonian people and the government precisely, so that the international community and people like BBC, I have personally sent correspondences to BBC. We've had BBC journalists join us during press conferences. So BBC cannot claim to be ignorant of the fact that the government or the leadership of the Ambazonian movement has opted to leave the decision for school resumption on the side of the parents. Now, when they go and pick images that they know it is different from the Ambazonian State Army and generalize it, it is not in our place to help them structure that fraud in their editorials, but it is in our place to tell the international community that the BBC report and accounts is fraudulent, is inaccurate, it is a media stunt mostly sponsored by the Republic of Cameroon to sabotage the genuine efforts of the people of Ambazonia. Onye, please.
Before you proceed, we're able to pick, because we do not have so much time to play the whole 27-minute video, we're trying to have a bit of 3 minutes except of some of the areas we can call the high points for us. So we'll take a play, watch and listen, and when we come back, we'll continue with this conversation before we get into the thought of the former South African president.
The conflict that is plaguing the country along its linguistic lines can be traced back to colonialism. Under colonial rule, the region that we today mostly call Cameroon was split in two, with 2 Anglophone regions, North and South, administered by Britain, and a French territory governed from Paris. In 1961, as independence approached for the Cameroonian territories under British rule, Northern Cameroon voted to join Nigeria, while Southern Cameroonians joined Cameroon. The country began as a federation, but in 1972, it became a unitary state. Since then, Anglophones have felt marginalized by the centralized Francophone government. And in late 2016, peaceful protests began against the creeping use of the Francophone legal system in the region's courtrooms.
It is now more than a month that we have been on strike after having notified the government about our dissatisfaction with the erosion of the common law.
Caught in the crossfire between Cameroon security forces and the armed separatists. The exact number of separatist fighters is unknown, but it's estimated to be somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000. As the conflict rages, many have no choice but to flee.
We felt that because of the bijural nature, the bilingual nature, the history of this country, where 2 systems had to coexist, there was a need for lawyers to rise up, to raise their voices against this encroachment into the common law.
Teachers and students will soon join the lawyers in calling for an end to the marginalization of the Anglophone minority. Close their doors.
We started by writing to the government, which failed to respond. We called for boycotts of courts. We called for school boycotts, but it was peaceful and civil. At no point in time did we advocate for violence.
And mass arrests. A disproportionate and deadly use of violence by the Cameroonian security forces, in the words of the African Union's Commission on Human Rights. It was after these acts of violence that armed separatist groups were formed. And in late 2017, as tensions escalated, Anglophone separatist leaders declared independence for what they call the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Separatist groups have attacked dozens of CDC workers like him in an effort to bring the government and the economy to its knees. But that's not all.
No school is Ambazonian. No school to study Cameroon.
For years now, the separatists have tried to enforce a ban on education, which is viewed by them as a mouthpiece for government propaganda.
No school is open.
This video was filmed in October 2023 in a town called Guzan. Widely shared on social media, it shows separatists mercilessly killing two unarmed men who were accused of collaborating with the Cameroonian government.
There was a time, in my estimation, where from reality in a way that is separation of nothing. So everybody should die for us to have independence. And I ask the question, if everybody dies and you have independence, who are you going to govern?
In search of separatists. He has taken it upon himself to counter separatist attacks in his own way.
Who are some of the people you look for when you do patrol?
I look for, first of all, the Ambazonians. I look for thieves and also informants, the ones that are not in the bushes, but they are here to give information to the Ambazonians. They are worse than the Ambazonians. But we struggle to hand him over to the forces of law and order for investigation. We don't kill them.
And torturing unarmed civilians he considered to be separatist fighters or their supporters. Videos like this one, where he is pushing a man into the trunk of a car. I put this to him.
We've seen videos on social media accusing you that you're targeting a civilian. What's your response to that?
I've never laid my hands to any civilian, just the Ambazonian. Yeah, and I believe the gods of this land are with me.
You can fight the separatists. You can fight against some of the ills that they commit. But you don't fight the ills that they commit by committing more ills. I think also the state of Cameroon is guilty of acquiescing to what Moja is doing, in what they have done or in what they have failed to do in one way or the other. They have emboldened him in such a way that he feels he's above the law.
Oh, well, there are different angles to this particular report. And when we talk about the historicity of the Ambazonian journey, Mr. Tarh, you do not accept what the BBC reporter has projected.
Yeah, actually, and I would like to be very brief on that. I watched this report just after I finished watching Misleading. When it got to the point of narrating the British provinces or what the Britain had custody over during colonial times, you had a French journalist, a Cameroonian born, a La République du Cameroon citizen, who seemed to understand the historical bearing better than an Ambazonian born. I don't think he is ignorant, not after 10 years that we have had a vast emancipation and everybody now knows the history. When he got to the point where he had to talk about the northern vote and the circumstances that led to the experimental relationship between the two Cameroons, he spin it there, and that was fraudulent to me. I think that was intentional so that they will continue to put us in a position where we are seen as illegals in our effort to actualize an independence that was stolen. Then fast forward to Agbobala's narrative, and even on the school issue, the interim government has a position, or the government has a position on school resumption. And I don't know of any Ambazonian state army for the past 3 or 4 years that's stopping anyone from going to school. You heard Agbobala, they're trying to claim, emotionally blackmail the people of Ambazonia, that if they kill everybody and seek for, so he is trying to say that we should probably jeopardize. That's my interpretation, and I hold that very strongly. We should jeopardize the effort of a totally independent Ambazonia, which we are seeing that the only way Cameroon can listen is if we are going to wage them with weapons Agbobala is emotionally blackmailing us with his statement by saying that if you take up weapons and kill everybody and gain an independent Ambazonia, that's a stupid question from an intellectual like Agbobala, who should know how weapons came about in a peaceful protest that he started. So it is this manipulation and this narration that is troubling, and I thought that ABC would need to debunk it.
Before we continue, Barrister Mbeseha, with this conflict and the war and everything currently under the preliminary examination by the International Criminal Court, now questions are arising about the legality of the timing as well and the narratives of media reports such as this. What would you say about the legality of this based on the fact that this is already in the ICC?
Now, again, let me emphasize this. What we are doing here and what we have been doing, it is within our right to correct a narrative. Because we must not forget that this struggle has been on for 8 years. Are you getting me? We're still talking. Are you getting me?
Go ahead, we can hear you.
This struggle has been on for 8 years. Most of what you showed out there has happened. But let us forget about Gombala and look at reporting in general. You see, the struggle itself has stabilized as we go on. Most of what you showed there, 2016, Manchu BBC, in the demonstration, 2017. I remember that we are now a government. This government became effective in 2019, very, very effective in 2019. And we started as a policy in specific policies for particular issues. Take, for example, the school issue. This government has put a policy on school. Our policy has been publicly. If you think there's security for your child to go to school, so be it. Other people will say anything they want to say. But again, we must not forget the context in which these things are going on. If, for example, you were a reporter, let us forget about Wambala and talk about other reporters. If we were just a BBC reporter, or Voice of America reporter, and you're reporting about what's been going on, what will you say? How will you report the incident of killing children, shooting people in Muzang Market? These people who shot, which is the ADF, they also claim to be Ambazonian fighters. They will know that. We'll come here to say they are not us. What will you report of what happened in 2017 by Akwanga's group in Monyenge when they were capturing priests, doing all that of things to church people? They also claimed to be fighting for Ambazonia. They claim also to be Ambazonian liberation fighters. And so a reporter will put that general blanket, Ambazonians have done this. How will a reporter report what was happening in Bamenda just a few months ago, changing taxi colors, mounted by the ADF, and so on and so forth? A reporter will dump that story as being done by Ambazonian fighters, because Cho Ayaba and his group claim also to be Ambazonian fighters. Even the people that have been brought in by by Atanganji, they call Amba boys. The reporter will call them Ambazonian fighters. And so that is how the report is. It is within our right to correct the narrative when we come online like this to say that's what is happening. These people who are doing these things do not reflect what we stand for. And I've had the opportunity to say this, and I want us to insist on this. Over the years, especially in 2017, 2018, this struggle took a different format. What format did it take? They took the restoration format, the restoration of the institutions of Southern Cameroon, by creating, at the time, an interim government, which is the right strategy. The right strategy is to fight this struggle as the government of Southern Cameroon restores. And in that light, when we come here, we'll correct the narrative of the reporter and say that does not reflect what we, the government of Ambazonia, stand for. This is our policy. We sell our policy and disregard, let the world know that what the guys are saying does not reflect what Ambazonian government stands for. But the reporter, as I've said earlier, some of them know it very, very well. The report coming from their own interest. Agombala, who happens to be one of us, will tell his story in his own way, in his forums and in his town halls. His story is tilted to showing that a federation is the best thing. That's what he is after. And then we, as the Ambazonian government, that is not our goal. We will come here and say, okay, whatever thing Mr. Agombala is doing, he is not standing for the government of Ambazonia. The strategy that we chose in 2017 by restoring the government, not just talking, with its institutions, is what we stand for. That is the structure we're insisting will represent us in the future negotiation. And so,
Yes.
again, they will tell those stories wrongly, some of them will color it rightly, some of them will paint it black deliberately, but it's our duty to correct those errors. We're not coming here to praise it.
Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeki. Thank you so much for lending your voice and speaking out. By speaking out, you are already correcting these ills and the wrong narratives that has been projected by the media. But you know, there is still a whole lot for you to talk about, because we have this report by, we have this report coming in that is talking about the Thabo Mbeki's revelation, the efforts by African leaders to engage President Biya over these the Cameroons crisis. That's, of course, Lao Republic to Cameroon and the Southern Cameroon. Former South African President Thabo Mbeki has revealed that a number of former African heads of state have made efforts to engage President Paul Biya of the Cameroons in a bid to find a peaceful resolution to the ongoing war in the countries. However, Mbeki disclosed that these attempts have been met with resistance, as President Biya has reportedly avoided direct dialogue with any of them. Speaking to reporters, Mbeki emphasized the urgency of a diplomatic solution to the protracted conflict, which has led to a widespread instability and humanitarian concerns, particularly in the Ambazonian side of the Cameroons. In his words, says, we have reached out several times in good faith, hoping to contribute to a peaceful resolution. But unfortunately, President Biya has not responded to our calls. Let's get an excerpt of that.
Challenges in Cameroon that have been going on, including the violent conflict within Cameroon, kind of civil war.
Challenges in Cameroon that have been going on now for some time. including the violent conflict within Cameroon, kind of civil war. So we've been trying to talk to President Biya about this thing, to say as the African Forum, that's a former heads of state of Africa, to talk to President Biya to say we are ready to assist you, to work with you to solve this conflict. And we haven't gone very far because he's not been very keen to be assisted to address these challenges. So I then talked to, as the Africa Forum were doing this thing, I talked to the Commission of the African Union to say to them, but colleagues, what are you doing about this conflict in Cameroon? So one of the commissioners then tells me that we discussed the matter as a commission and decided that us should visit Cameroon to engage the president and everybody to see that what can we do as a union. And she said to me that, and indeed our colleague went. And I was sitting here in Addis Ababa watching the news. And in the news, it showed my colleague arriving in Yaoundé and walked down a red carpet. And she says, you know, President, when I saw my colleague walking down that red carpet, I knew that the mission had failed. So I say, no, this is a puzzling statement to make. He says, it's because the way they arranged that reception was to drive the notion into the head of my colleague that you are a very important person. So you are received with great grandeur. So in the end, it's the visit itself which becomes the objective, not its outcome. So I knew that my colleague would be so happy that he was received so well, and the red carpet and the champagne, this and that and the other. The mission would die. It's a crude reflection of the death of the Pan-Africanist objective. You can't sit there as a full-time functionary of the African Union and you go there to solve a very serious conflict among the Cameroonian people, but you don't carry it out because all that happened, that satisfies you, is that I was given all the necessary protocol and the due and so on. So now I'm a big person. It means there's something that has disappeared in terms of our consciousness and so on. But I'm saying that, you see.
Oh, well, for all we know, people have made efforts. Barrister Mbeseha, you've been interested in speaking on this particular topic. You have the floor now, but you would want to make it brief. You may want to make it brief. Subsequently, would have enough time to delve on it.
Yes, I'll make it as brief as possible. You see, the Thabo Mbeki narrative is one of the most important things we can learn in this struggle. If you follow him, before I say if you follow him, I personally appreciate what he's doing and what he has said. Because Thabo Mbeki is talking from experience, from practical experience. What does he say? He said, well, he saw that guy, whoever went to represent the African Commission, who was walking on the red carpet, he says he knew the thing had failed. That's the most important part of it. Once the guy stepped on the red carpet in Yaoundé, he knew the whole mission was already a failure, which is very important for us to understand. And then this is a man talking, I say he's talking from practical experience. In 2005, 2006, especially 2005, Thabo Mbeki, as the president of South Africa, he was made a mediator in the Ivorian conflict to mediate between Gbagbo government and Guillaume Soro, the first November. I was then in the Ivory Coast. But his mediation ended soon. Why? Because Guillaume Soro and his team, the first November, believed that Thabo Mbeki was romancing with the government of Gbagbo. They perceived him as just romancing with opponent. Romancing, which in this case can be, for example, just walking on a red carpet. Because Cameroon has used this method for a long time, which is called, I would describe in my own words, as silent diplomacy. They don't say anything. And I'll give you an example of what they've done before to support what Thabo Mbeki is saying. All of us remember a certain Patricia, who was the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. What did she wear when this conflict started? She went to Yaoundé. And Yaoundé, in a similar manner, treated her with a red carpet and gave her a golden statue. That's the end of the thing. She goes back. Even if she came out and said she did anything, we will not believe in her. Because of the red carpet treatment, her efforts have failed right there. And they have been doing this. Anybody who goes to Yaoundé on this pretext, Yaoundé doesn't even need to tell you what they tell them. They give him or her that red carpet treatment. It will not work. And so, like what we've been saying, African Union doesn't take part in this. They are aware of this problem. But the issue is, even as aware as they were, they created a commission to do it. But they sent the wrong person. For example, Thabo Mbeki. Do you think Thabo Mbeki would have walked on the red carpet? With the experience that this is the, if you do that, your mission is already at the clue. The mission has failed. And so, Yaoundé has used this method for a very long time. And they try to do it everywhere. Even when the Pope comes there, they try to use the Pope in that very way. They may not influence the guy, but once we see that perceived from our own perception, that's the end of your mission. Again, taking it very domestically, we saw this thing when it started in 2019. The Bishop cleared that. Said, look, we had wanted to present this thing to the president as the Catholic Church. What the Andrew said, no, he's receiving us. For Andrew, but Mary receiving him by the presidency was enough. And so whatever thing Andrew tells us, after having catapulted the effort of Bishop Cleda, is a non-starter. And so I take what Thabo Mbeki says very seriously. It's a lesson for us to learn. It is also a lesson, because we're not the actors there, it is a lesson for the international community that purports to go into this thing to learn. Because we are a new nation trying to grow ourselves. The Republic is 60, 70 years old in international diplomacy. They have been a government since 1960. They have representation of United Nations and other international organizations. They know how to circumvent these things. And so I would think that what Thabo Mbeki said is something so touching. It's a lesson that other diplomats should learn. Once you step on the red carpet of Yaoundé, people will say he bribed you. People will say the president, you know, you have sold the cause for which you were sent. And so the commission, apparently I don't know who they used, but let us assume that it was a different conflict and they used a dead man like Paul Biya, in terms of, oh, this is our father, go and do this thing. He will behave the same way. He says the cause. So thank Thabo Mbeki for bringing this thing out to us. Will you help us? May. We have the African Union in future if they have to go into any conflict, including us. Of course. Red carpet diplomatically have taken sides already. And he said, once you're on the red carpet, it shows that the mission itself is no longer important. The most important thing which is perceived publicly is the reception you receive. It defeats the purpose. It does the end of the mission. Over to you.
So much, Barrister Mbeseha. Mr. Tarh, you would want to join your voice to this, or you have an ulterior or other ideas to this issue?
Yeah, I have a holistic way of looking at this, and I'm happy that Thabo Mbeki is coming up or speaking out at this very critical time when Cameroon is escalating their propaganda by every means to sabotage the efforts of the Ambazonian or the Southern Cameroonian people seeking for justice. First of all, I want to applaud him. It confirms the fact that he was handpicked by Nelson Mandela, and he does have the integrity of Nelson Mandela. That's the first thing. Secondly, what message are we getting? It is telling us that, and the world cannot pretend after a major African leader like Thabo Mbeki will speak. The world cannot pretend that they are not aware that the cabal in Yaoundé is unwilling to end the war. They have merchandised the war. They are making a lot of money in the war. They're trying to partner and borrow money from their partners, because you have ministers in Yaoundé. We have revelations that ministers in Yaoundé are using the conflict in Ambazonia to raise for themselves a lot of money. So the cabal that you have there, because Biya is a dead man. Biya is now an institution that have criminals in Yaoundé that are bearing the name Biya. These people have no interest to end the war. The war must understand. The only party that has shown genuine interest to stop the maiming of civilian life is the government of Ambazonia. And that's why we have marked present at every given opportunity that could lead to a peaceful resolution. Cameroon is not interested. What Cameroon is doing in their card or their game plan is to manipulate. First of all, they start by manipulating the fighters on the ground that are defending the people that they're oppressing. They manipulate some and then try to divide and conquer them. They come to the diaspora and they do exact same. We're aware of some conferences that took place or meetings in Ghana, some that have taken place in different parts of the world. Cameroon is unwilling. The international community should take this testimony from Thabo Mbeki as a litmus test of who is genuinely seeking for a peaceful resolution in that sub-African region, and take the people of Southern Cameroon seriously. And this is orchestrated and funded and inspired by France because of an interest. Cameroon does not want any genuine conversation, because in a genuine conversation, the legalities and the historicity will be on the table, and this is a fight that will lose. In any intellectual debate, Cameroon cannot contend with Ambazonia. Now they are beginning to realize that they cannot even win the armed struggle, the war that they said they were going to win within 2 weeks. But they are actually making money from the war. I'm not talking about the economy. I'm talking about individuals. Ministers are making money. When you have Atanganji going about asking for donations, is to enrich himself. Now what is happening, you just saw Moja in the video earlier on. Cameroonian politicians, CPDM loyalists, are patronizing armed men. Just last week, you were reporting, they are now getting even to Nigeria and paying Fulani headsmen to come and empower the Bororos within the Southern Cameroons. All of this armed exchange, and it's about protecting their evil, greedy political self-interests, and to put the people of the Southern Cameroons. The United States of America is watching this program. The State Department, we expect them to ask real questions to Yaoundé after listening to such a testimony, rather than turning around and blaming the oppressed people for defending themselves from colonial intrusion. Thank you, Onye, for having me.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Tarh. Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha, for coming on Undaunted today. And sincerest apologies to Ambazonians that we came so much behind schedule for today's timing. That was due to some technical hitches that was a little bit beyond our control. But regardless, we brought you the Undaunted news and brought it in full piece. But because of time, we would have to end the Undaunted news report here this time, because we know that tomorrow the conversation would continue, and thereafter I will definitely bring you up to speed with follow-ups on all of these reports and new reports that will be brought to the front burner. This is where I would say have a very good evening. Good night and God bless.